Hello, everybody. My name is Vladimir Jirásek. This is another session, or first session of the AWS series with experts from AWS, organized by the Cloud Security Alliance UK chapter. Today we have Andy Bunn talking about the security services available in AWS. Over to you, Andy. Thank you.
So, thank you for joining us for the session. As I mentioned, I'm going to be talking about getting the most out of cloud-native security services. Just a little bit about myself. I'm Andy Bunn. I'm a specialist security and compliance solutions architect, and I work within the AWS EMEA, Worldwide Public Sector Security Specialist team. And I help government customers all over EMEA migrate and operate sensitive and regulated workloads in the cloud. So, first off, if you're new to AWS, I like to talk a little bit about our infrastructure and services and how customers can benefit from all of the hard work that we put into securing customer workloads. Now, at AWS, security, we always say, is our top priority. And using AWS, you can gain control and confidence that you need to securely run your business or organization in a secure cloud computing environment. And as an AWS customer, you get to benefit from AWS data centers and a dedicated network that's been architected to protect information, identities, applications, and devices from the threats in today's internet-connected landscape. With AWS, you can improve your ability to meet secure core security and compliance requirements, such as data locality, data protection, and confidentiality. And you can do this with our comprehensive services and features, but also by integrating third-party partner products and your own tooling. Now, we like to talk about the ability for customers to be able to scale instantly, and you also get, with that ability to scale, a really superior visibility and control into everything that's going on in the platform. So every request that's made, every action that's carried out on the platform, you get a log of that. And, that gives you amazing visibility into what's going on within your environment. Far more visibility than you get in a traditional on-premises data center, where you can't necessarily see what an engineer is doing or what's has caused something. Whereas here you can go back through your logs and you can see exactly who or what service asked to access which piece of data or edit which resource. So, we also like to talk about having the highest standards for privacy and data security. Securing our customer data really is our top priority. And we take that very seriously. If we didn't, we wouldn't have millions of active customers around the world. Our customers represent a really diverse set of industries and a real wide range of use cases, including large enterprises, governments, educational institutions. And this gives us a really broad and deep perspective on cloud security. And this is knowledge which we rapidly try to reinvest back into our own infrastructure and services so that customers get that benefit as soon as possible. And one of the topics, as I mentioned today, that we're going to cover in quite some detail is looking at automation and the benefit of automation in security. We always talk about how resources are stretched in security teams and, there's a lot of alert fatigue. Well, actually, one of the biggest benefits of the cloud is being able to automate some of those responses and remediations in a way that frees up those teams to deal with the more important, the more skilled parts of their job. And finally, I just want to mention very quickly that, we have the largest network of security partners and solutions around. And you can extend the benefits of using AWS by using some of your existing security technology, maybe that you've already got a wealth of experience and knowledge in. but also some of our consulting services from familiar solutions providers that you already know and trust. And that's always a really big thing when you're new to the cloud and you're looking for advice, or you're looking for security tooling to meet your needs. It's really important that you have access to those security technology vendors through things like AWS Marketplace and those APN consulting partners who can really help expedite your transition to the cloud. So let's move on to talk a little bit more about automation and how you can reduce risk by using cloud-native security services. So automating security tasks on AWS enables you to be more secure by reducing human configuration errors and giving your team more time to focus on other work critical to your business. And you know, with security professionals, you don't want to be wasting that valuable resource with them looking through, you know, the regular alerts that you might get from misconfigurations. You know, you want to be focusing them on much more valuable tasks. Now, on AWS, you can select from a wide variety of deeply integrated solutions that can be combined to automate tasks in really novel ways, making it much easier for your security team to work closely with developer and operations teams to create and deploy code faster and more securely. Now, for example, by employing technologies like machine learning, AWS enables you to automatically and continuously discover, classify, and protect sensitive data in AWS with just a few clicks in the AWS console. So that's AWS Macie, and we can talk a little bit about that later. You can also automate infrastructure and application security checks to continually enforce your security and compliance controls and help ensure confidentiality, integrity, and availability at all times. And this is really important. And I think, you know, automation is something that every customer should be looking to. It's a real benefit of using the cloud. It is a big step change for a lot of people, and it's something that we're here to help with. Now, it wouldn't be an AWS presentation if I didn't have a slide with a lot of service names on. And this is a view of a lot of our security related services aligned to the AWS Cloud Adoption Framework. Now, today we're going to particularly focus on the detection and incident response pillars. In particular, we're going to focus on AWS Security Hub as a single pane of glass to your security and compliance posture of your environment on AWS. And we're going to look at how integrating more native security services and third-party partner products gets you a really rich set of data on which you can trigger automation. So inside that incident response section, we're going to look a little bit at config rules, and we're going to look at using AWS Lambda and AWS Audit Manager, AWS Lambda and AWS config rules to help with instant response. So there's a lot of services on that list, and when I speak to customers a lot of the time, especially ones that are new to AWS, they want to know where they should start. And there are some really basics, and you know, the primary one that you will hear anyone from AWS suggest, including our CISO Steve Smith, would be to enable guard duty in every account or across your AWS organization. And now guard duty is our managed threat detection service, and it is going to alert you to the most common vulnerabilities and misconfigurations that we see on the platform, and it's going to do that through a couple of different ways. It's going to do that through kind of intelligence-based approach, and it's also going to do that using machine learning, and it's going to do anomaly detection and various other things. It uses models that are trained to your account, and it's really going to offer a lot of value to the organization from a protection point of view. It's going to alert you to those misconfigurations, and it ties in very well with AWS Security Hub. As you can see here, we're showing a number of the security services that are able to forward their findings into Security Hub, and we'll cover those a little bit in a bit more detail, because there are a few more than shown on this slide. Now, we would recommend that you enable Security Hub and Guard Duty across your whole organization. And that's really easy with recent updates to the services that now enable you to enable the service across your organization with a few clicks in the console. And we'll have a little look at that in the demo later on. So once we've done that and we've enabled the cloud native services, what do we do next? Well, then we want to look at additional security tooling and controls that you may want to bring in that aren't native to the cloud. But the important thing there is that we want to get some information from those, and we want to integrate them with Security Hub wherever possible. Because the more information we can give Security Hub and the more context we can get into there, the better and the more information we have when we start looking at automating runbooks further down the line. So once we have that, we're gathering all of that information, we're getting all of that data into Security Hub. We then need to obviously do something with it. We can't just switch it on, we need to take action. So the next stage really is to look at operationalizing those findings and making use of that data. And we can do that in a number of different ways. And we're going to have a look at a few of the easy to adopt solutions that we have in this space that might help your thinking in the beginning and allow you to start seeing how you could use these kind of solutions and approaches to improve your own security posture in your environment. And then finally, we want to look at automating responses. So if we're getting all of that data and we can see what's going on in the environment, why not automate it? You know, like I said, we want to automate the low-hanging fruit first and allow our security professionals to get on with the more complex elements of their job. So, this is where... Right. So let's take a quick a bit of a deeper look at AWS Security Hub. So AWS Security Hub allows you to centrally view and manage security alerts and automate security checks. It's going to aggregate findings, and it's going to give them a severity, and it's going to kind of help you prioritize those findings so you know where you need to focus your efforts. It has a number of built-in security standards, the AWS Foundational Security Best Practices, AWS CIS Benchmark, and PCI DSS. And these help continuously assess your environment for compliance against these known standards. It has a seamless integration, and it also has a standardized findings format called the Amazon Security Findings Format, ASFF. And we're going to have a look at that a bit closer in a couple of slides' time. The other important thing is that there is full multi-account support for Security Hub. And as I mentioned, there's been a recent update that makes enabling it across your AWS organization even easier than it was before. So how does Security Hub work? So Security Hub works by ingesting and aggregating and prioritizing findings from a number of different sources. And as you can see here, we've listed those sources on the left-hand side of the diagram. So you've got Amazon Guard Duty, Amazon Macie, Firewall Manager, Config, Amazon Inspector, IAM Analyzer, and we now actually also have Systems Manager, Patch Manager in there as well. And then we have third-party integrations, and we'll look at those a bit closer in a couple of slides' time, but it's important that we are integrating our third-party products into Security Hub. So we're feeding all of those log sources and finding sources, straight into Security Hub, where it's going to aggregate those and prioritize those findings and present them to us in a single pane of glass. It's also going to be conducting automated security checks against those benchmarks that I mentioned. And the idea then is that your security professionals that are making use of the console are able to take action to investigate and respond and remediate where appropriate. Now, those remediations may be manual or they could be automated, as we're going to look at today. So a little bit more about the AWS security finding format. The Security Hub processes all of the findings it uses using this standard ASFF format. It eliminates the need for time-consuming data conversion. It correlates findings across multiple products and services, both cloud-native and partner-based. It uses this to prioritize the most important findings, and it can be used to create custom findings for ingestion into Security Hub. So you can generate your own findings that are relevant to your either applications or infrastructure, and you can have those appear in Security Hub. Now, a little look at ASFF. So some of the example ASFF attributes are going to give you something like the AWS account ID of where the finding was found. It's going to give you the context around when the finding was first observed, when it was last observed as well, so you can see how regularly, how long this has been an issue and how regularly it's appearing. You're also then going to see some information about the resources that are involved in the finding, and that varies depending on the type of finding that you are looking at. It's then going to give you that severity and criticality. So it's going to give you that label of high, medium or low or critical to allow you to assess where you need to prioritize your efforts. It's also going to give you some details about remediating the finding. If Security Hub knows how to remediate it, or a partner product knows how to remediate it, this will be populated there. It's also going to draw to your attention any particular vulnerabilities that may affect that finding. So it's there's a whole load more information available in the Security Hub documentation on the link shown at the bottom of the screen there. You can go and find out all about ASFF and how best to use it if you are looking at doing customized integrations. So, moving on to have a little look at integrating security tooling into Security Hub. Now, I want to have a little look at a bit of a closer look at some of those Security Hub information flows. So, we previously, on the previous slide, talked about the AWS services that can import send findings to Security Hub. You can also see there a representation of our security partners sending findings in from third-party products, and dozens of other checks that we carry out using config and various other methods for the security standards. Now, those are all brought into Security Hub, and in a multi-account environment, the data is aggregated to the Security Hub delegated administrator account, which is usually the security or audit account in a control tower environment. So once the information's into Security Hub, we have the ability, every finding that's posted is posted to CloudWatch logs and Amazon EventBridge. Now this allows us to create rules that can trigger certain responses to a finding. And we generally group these responses into remediation actions, which may be running a task such as a Lambda function or a step function for more complicated remediation efforts. But it also might be doing something like paging an on-call security engineer using PagerDuty, or raising a Jira ticket or a ServiceNow ticket, or even sending a message to a Slack group to alert people to the fact that there's been a finding and maybe that some automatic remediation is taking place in the environment. So we've talked a bit about integrating findings from AWS, from other AWS services. Firewall Manager allows us to send findings to Security Hub when WAF policies are not in compliance, but also when Shield Advance is not protecting resources, or when an attack is identified. And you can see here that we can get a lot of very useful information from many different services, and how that information could be useful when we're looking at automation. Now, if some of our out-of-the-box alerts and controls within Security Hub don't quite meet your needs, then you can go and create your own customizations and have them deliver findings into Security Hub. So basically what you can do is you can use custom AWS config rules, and you can have them published into Security Hub as findings. Now, this is actually showing a blog post, which is, the URL is on the screen at the moment. And this talks you through and gives you some example code on how to do this. So how to go into AWS config, create a config rule, create the CloudWatch rule, and then also have Lambda publish that into Security Hub as a finding which you could then take action on. We talked a little bit about integrating and enabling your existing security products. So, you probably already have a number of security tools that your staff are trained on and that you are used to using. There's a good chance that you're going to be able to bring those with you into AWS. Where possible, you want to look for something where we have a native integration with Security Hub. But there are ways, as I showed with the previous slide, to actually do your own customizations and alerting from third-party tools into Security Hub. But the main takeaway here is that, again, the more information you can bring into Security Hub and the more context that you can make available when we're looking at automating, the better. So the more information that we have to be able to take decisions on, and the better view, the more holistic view of the environment, the more options and the more approaches we have for automating remediation. So, just looking at those partner integrations a bit more, you can see that we have a real breadth and depth to the partner base of the different types of partners that can integrate into Security Hub. So, you've got firewall vendors like Palo Alto and F5, your kind of top vulnerability management partners like Tenable and Qualys. And they're all able to feed really useful, detailed, enriched data into Security Hub, which we're then able to take action on in the same way we can from cloud native services. So we can use that pattern of Amazon CloudWatch events and an event-based rule to trigger some action. And that action could be another partner product, as you can see here. It could be raising tickets in ServiceNow. It could be paging someone using PagerDuty. It could also be forwarding some enriched data on to a SIEM like Splunk. And it really does give you ultimate flexibility in how you respond to findings and events within your environment. So once we've got all that data in there, we want to look at how we operationalize and automate and make the best use of that data when we can. So I want to make use of something that if you're from the UK and you watch a program called the Antiques Roadshow, they always do this good, better and best. So I want to give you the good, better and best of operationalizing security findings using Security Hub. So good might look like going into Security Hub and creating some custom insights to track maybe some security initiatives that you've come up with over time. And so Security Hub gives you the ability to track these over time in a very visual way and see just very easily what the trend is on that particular control or that particular custom insight. better would be something along the lines of automating security finding alerting. And I've highlighted a blog here which talks about how to set up a recurring Security Hub digest email so that you get the most important information in a regular format and you don't necessarily suffer from alert fatigue. If you just point all Security Hub alerts at an SNS topic and blast them out to all of your security operatives, that may be a bit noisy. So there's solutions out there like this blog post that can help you filter that noise and get to a good way of providing different customers or different stakeholders the right data for them. So there's also several other solutions available and demos available that show off different approaches to this around maybe having different email address, different SNS topics for different priorities, for instance, and making sure that critical priority ones go to maybe more people or a wider audience. It's very much down to the customer finding the right level for them. And then taking it a step further, what would best look like? And that's when we're starting to look at fully automating security finding, response and remediation. And again, there's another really good blog, an AWS solution, which is called Automated Response and Remediation with AWS Security Hub. And we're going to look a bit more at that particular solution today. So when I'm talking about automation with customers, I think it's really important that we find a good place to start. And often that can be a bit of a blocker with some customers. They kind of spend a lot of time thinking about everything they need to do and potentially boiling the ocean, when actually taking, let's start with some really easy things to implement and then work up to automating full runbooks and allowing the automation to take much more control over the response and take bigger steps when responding. So I want to show you and walk you through a solution that's available in the AWS Solutions library today. Now, the Security Hub Automated Response and Remediation solution is really simple to deploy. You can deploy it from the console from the Solutions Overview page. And it's really easy to get up and running. So we're working in a multi-account environment here. You can see that we have AWS Security Hub enabled at the bottom, in the bottom box. And this is aggregating its findings up into an AWS Security Hub primary account. And then when those findings arrive in the primary account, you can see that we have those CloudWatch events rules set up to trigger on certain findings. And when they trigger, they're going to trigger an automatic remediation. And that remediation could be an AWS Lambda, an AWS step function, or even an AWS Systems Manager automation document that's going to go away and carry out a sequence of commands and instructions that we've written for us. But then more importantly, it's going to log all of this. So it's going to log the fact that it's taking action, and it's going to be available to you in CloudWatch logs. So you can see exactly what the automation has done as part of its response. So now, demo time, if we jump over to my demo environment. As you can see, we've jumped straight into the AWS console, and we've jumped into the Security Hub console. When you first visit Security Hub, it's going to bring you into the summary or dashboard page, and it's going to give you some basic information about the top insights or findings within the environment. It's going to show you the latest integration or the latest findings from integrations with other AWS services. But it's also going to give you an overview of things like security standards that you have enabled. So I just quickly want to cover off the update that we talked about earlier about how to enable Security Hub across your multi-account environment. So as you can see here, we've enabled this across my demo environment using AWS organizations. You can also see that we've enabled auto enable, so that in future, any account that's vended into my organization, Security Hub's going to make sure that it's enabled and configured for you, so that the information is automatically aggregated through to that delegated administrator account. And it's as easy as hitting enable and ticking that box, and it's going to go on and going to maintain that for you going forward. Just quickly before we go a bit further, I just also want to show you where you can come and look at the integrations that are available. You can obviously see here the AWS services, the native ones that we've been talking about. But you can also see the wide selection of partner services. And this is, this is going to give you the instructions on how to go away and integrate with those particular partners. So, if we look at security standards, you can see that in my demo environment, we've got the AWS Foundation Security Best Practices standard enabled. And you can see that we've got a few failed controls that we need to go and address. So if we want to use the AWS Security Hub automated remediation response solution, we need to go and deploy the solution, and the first thing we do is deploy some CloudFormation templates. These are covered in the deployment guide. So I'm going to go from the stage where you've deployed the initial CloudFormation templates. Once you've deployed the CloudFormation templates, you're going to have available a service catalog portfolio called Security Hub Playbooks. You're then going to be able to go into products, and you're going to be able to launch either the CIS or AWS Foundational Security Best Practices playbooks. You can launch both, and in fact I have already provisioned those products within my environment. So you can see here that I have both the CIS and Foundational Security Best Practices runbooks deployed within my environment. Now, to show you what it looks like when you're doing the initial deployment, I'm just going to click on Update, and it's going to bring me to the screen that looks incredibly similar to the initial deployment. And you can see that for each of the controls that has an automated response available in the pack, there is the option to enable the fully automated remediation and to install the remediation. So I've got mine all set to install all of the remediations but have all of the automated responses disabled. And that's purely because if I'd enabled them all, I wouldn't be able to show you the demo today. But it also means that you have control over which automations are enabled. So if maybe you've done some testing on one automation and you slowly want to bring them online one by one, you can very easily have fine-grained control over what the automation is doing to your resources and environment. So I'm just going to cancel out of that. Once we have now deployed this and your status is shown as available, when we go into the Security Hub console and we look at one of these findings, so let's take this particular finding here. This finding's telling us that there's a security group that should, the default security group should not allow inbound and outbound traffic. By default, when a new VPC is created, the default security group is overly permissive. And it's something that a lot of customers obviously want to remediate very quickly. So if we click on here, we can see that we have one instance of a default security group that has failed its check. Now, if we had the automation for this switched on, the solution would have already automated this. But we also have the ability to run the automation manually. So if I select this finding, I can actually go into actions, and these are customized actions. I'll show you these configuration in a second. And we can pick the action for EC 2.2, which is the control that we're currently looking at. And I can click. And what happens is you'll see a message come up that says we successfully sent a finding to CloudWatch events. Now what's happening under the hood here is we've just forwarded that finding information on to CloudWatch events, and that's going to trigger a CloudWatch events rule. Now that rule is in turn going to go and trigger a step function, which is going to go and carry out the remediation in this other account within our environment. So if we give the demo a couple of seconds, hopefully, well, bear with me a second. Okay, so what we can see is that we now have an update on the status of that finding, and the automation has set the workflow to resolved. It's also put a note or a comment on the finding that says that the remediation has removed rules on the default security group. And if we were to wait for a couple more minutes, you'll see that the check will rerun and it will then move to a status of passed, and in fact it will then become archived. And actually we can go and see one of the findings that I remediated earlier today. So we can go into the findings and we can pick a workflow status and we can say is resolved. And you can see here, this is one of the findings that I manually remediated earlier today when I was testing out the environment before doing the demo. So you can see that it's now at a status of passed, but I can go in and see more information about this particular finding and the work that the automation did to resolve the finding. So that's a really quick demo of the automated remediation and response solution from AWS. It gives you an idea of how to do some kind of quite easy and entry-level automatic remediations. It also gives you quite a good framework to understand how you can do cross-account remediation. And it is extensible. So the full source code for the solution is available on GitHub. And you could see how you could create your own additional runbooks that could be deployed in alongside the solution. But for some customers, that isn't enough. They need to go further, and we need to look at more advanced automation. So if we jump back to the PowerPoint for a second, I want to talk a little bit about automation at Goldman Sachs. This is from a reInvent session that we did with Goldman Sachs a couple of years ago. And it starts to look at how we can automate more advanced runbooks in the cloud. So the kind of runbooks that you would expect to find in an enterprise SOC. So if we look at this particular example, this is looking at disk evidence collection within the cloud. And this is looking at their before automation process. So you can see here that there are 21 steps described, and these would be carried out by manually by a SOC operative. And I wouldn't like to guess at the exact time frame that it's going to take, but it's going to be kind of measured in hours, not minutes, to carry out all of these tasks, I would have thought. So how can we automate that in the cloud and actually make it much faster, but also much more useful to our SOC operatives? You know, is it a valuable use of their time to be going and creating, snapshots and evidence for use in investigations when this could easily be automated? So after automation, their solution looks something like this. You can see that centralized security account that we were talking about in previous slides on the right-hand side, and a member account on the left-hand side. And after the automation, after the automation was complete, basically what's happening is you've got Guard Duty and Security Hub forwarding their findings onto the primary or the delegated administrator account for AWS Security Hub. At which point those customized CloudWatch event rules are firing an AWS step function. Now, that step function is effectively a runbook as code. So it outlines a number of steps that need to happen for the evidence collection to take place. And these are generally a number of Lambda functions that are orchestrated by step functions. So effectively, the step function is going to assume a cross-account role. It's going to snapshot the compromised instance and any attached EBS volumes. It's going to encrypt those snapshots and share them back to the security account. And then the security account is going to create a collector VM instance, and it's going to attach the snapshots, and it's going to use DD to create a copy of a precise copy of the data that's in those EBS volumes, and it's going to dump them to an evidence bucket. Now, the latter half of that process, using the collector VM instance and the evidence bucket, could vary to make use of any number of forensics frameworks or approaches that are relevant to each individual customer. But it gives you a really good idea about how easy it is to automate. The other thing here is that there's no human involvement until the evidence bucket is full. So when that PagerDuty notice goes to the on-call SOC engineer and he goes in to start looking at this, he's going to arrive to a bucket full of evidence and any other contextual information that you may have gathered as part of your runbook as code, as part of the step function. And this really does enhance sort of the time to fix and time to remediation. So it's all about harnessing that information that is available, those data-rich sources from native cloud security tooling, alongside, you know, those partner integrations, to be able to give your automation enough contextual data to help make decisions and to help you know, do some pretty advanced remediation effort for you, or indeed, you know, forensics collection, like this example from Goldman Sachs. Now, you can see the whole reInvent session on YouTube. I'd really recommend it. It's a really good watch. They talk at some depth about the problems they were seeing and the scale at which they operate, and how taking quite a common approach to automating some of their remediations and runbook activities has really helped advance their security posture and SOC operations. So, in summary, use native services to gain additional enriched data sources. Your cloud service provider, in our case AWS, you know, they are collecting the relevant data and providing it to you as a customer. And you really want to leverage our ability to provide you that information and to integrate it across a number of services to allow you to do really easy automation. We want to integrate security tooling from third parties to allow us to get a holistic view and enable the automation to have better context. You know, some of that security tooling may be GRC applications that help put some risk context into the decision-making process. It really can be as simple or as complex as you want, but having the information there to help make those decisions is really important. Automate response, right? Wherever possible, think about automating. If you're doing something time and time again, stop, automate it. You know, allow your SOC staff and your security professionals to focus on the really important things like threat hunting, and let the platform carry out and do the first level response for you. It's much faster and you're going to have a much better customer experience. And I think finally, the last bit of advice is really, it is a marathon and not a sprint. It takes a lot of time and iteration to build and test the automation required when we're talking about complex runbooks. But it really is worth it. The return on investment in automation from a security perspective is immense. And as you grow as an organization, you're going to realize that you can't have a human look at every log, every alert, and the automation is a necessity. And it's certainly what we've seen at AWS as we've grown. And spending time and effort on your automation is really key, but it does save you a lot of time and effort in the long run. So I hope you've really enjoyed today's session, and I hope you'll join us in the future for the follow-up sessions with some of my other colleagues. I'm just going to bring Vladimir back in. Oh.
Thank you, Andy. I believe in this really good overview and demo. Demo always brings additional value. I perhaps have a question about the sharing of these playbooks and automation code, essentially as a code. Is there a useful, well-maintained GitHub repository where even customers and kind of can cooperate and put pull requests to share useful playbooks that they are creating, or is it all maintained by AWS and we can pull it but not give back to the community? That's probably my question.
So with that particular AWS solution, the one that we showed, the automation one, they are AWS curated. You can add your, you can put a pull request in, get the code, add your own. I'm not sure on the status of the pushing and adding back. It's something which I think the team that are responsible for would probably like to see what customers are doing with that solution, to be honest with you, and how you could expand it.
Yeah.
And I think fostering, best practices around security automation is something that we should be doing. I think one of the issues there is that for a lot of customers, some of those remediations are really quite specific to their environment. They may include application level things. They may include information about or data from risk management solutions. So sometimes sharing them can be a bit tricky. But it's something we should be encouraging because, making automation easier in the cloud is something everyone has an interest in. And it's really important for the future of security. As I say, those data volumes are growing. We only have a certain number of security professionals and resource available to us. So we need to get better at harnessing automation in our day-to-day lives as security professionals.
Yeah, thank you. So Andy, thanks a lot. Do you have any closing words for the audience?
No, I'd really encourage them to go and watch the Goldman Sachs session, but also go and do a search on YouTube for automation. There's a lot of good videos out from my colleagues that talk at depth about automation. Really put it on your agenda and spend some time looking at it. It's a real win-win for most organizations. And as I say, it's something that every customer needs to embrace.
Definitely. Okay, Andy, thanks a lot. And I hope that everybody enjoyed this session. This is the session 1 of the series with AWS. More to come, and keep you posted and stay tuned. Thank you.
Thanks.